Well, hello and welcome to a very special session today. I am Tim Votapka. I am the VP Director of Marketing at Prosperity Plus. It is an absolute privilege to be joining your video screen today as I talk today for about a half hour or so on the relevancy of video as it pertains to your brand, your position, your credibility with your target audience. And by target audience, I'm really looking at a couple of them. There is the traditional target audience in terms of your customer base, your prospects, and all of that. And that's fine. And much of the data and vernacular I'll be using will be talking about that sort of thing. But take this later on and overlay it onto another audience that you might not be always thinking about, which is your internal audience, your allies, your partners, that includes your staff, your prospective employees, the people you want to recruit, as well as your suppliers, those you have on board already, as well as those you really wish you had in your bag of product offering as well. And not to mention anybody who else might be out there as a referral source, your champions, if you will, those people who are your networking buddies and so forth. Anybody who has the ability or authority or even just know-how to be able to recommend you to anyone. So given all of that, let's plow into this presentation today, which should take about 30 minutes or so. Little bit about me. I have been in this business for a long period of time, and I have been a marketing pro ever since day 2.5. First part of my career, I was actually a news and business trade editor. I started my career way back when newspapers were a thing, and I was a cub reporter for a weekly newspaper, and I got out of school with a degree in journalism. And I've always been involved in not just editing and reporting and all of that and developing content, those days in written form, but also in regard to the layout and design. Back in the day, I was a typography specialist. I just designed a lot of different things and supplements and so forth. So I've always had that creative element attached to my resume, if you will. For the most part of my career now, I've been a creative director, producer. If people say, well, what do you do? I say I produce marketing material. I don't specify if it's written or not. And it used to be primarily written. I used to do brochures and advertising campaigns. I still do, design quite a bit of them, actually. But I also now do editorial work on email blasts, website content. I am not an SEO specialist. I don't get into that, but I have a little bit of knowledge that gets me enough position to be dangerous, at least to get you in a good place with regard to your content. I do a lot of work in promotional material. I still do a lot of work in publications and magazines, maybe not so much written, printed format ones, but ones that look like they're printed magazines that are now available and disseminated through email channels and PDF formats for downloads. Love doing those. Presentations and corporate events. I put those in there because that kind of is where this whole video stress, if you will, kind of started. That's where that seed was planted even 12, 15 years ago, when I had the opportunity to start to coach people on how they were being received in front of a live audience. And obviously some of that is just as true then as it is today, only today we're using cameras to do the same thing instead of a live audience. So that's been my background all of these years, and I'm going to stick to it. As far as today's session goes, what we're going to be talking about is this whole idea of relevancy, and why is that such a key word in this. I'm going to buzz through the 8 things that are new that you need to know. Then some of them you may have already known, some of them you may not have really thought about, or maybe there's 2 or 3 in here that are brand new to you. Either way, I'll try to make it quick, fast-paced, and obviously you can always come back to this and rewatch it. I'm going to talk about how and where to use video content. It's more widely usable than you might think, and it's easier than you might be thinking. We'll see. And if there's time, there's always a room for questions, though this is a recording, so we probably take up questions afterwards. So start thinking with anything that might you have on your mind and get back to me after we are done there. All right, so moving along. Today, we're in a fast-paced digital world. You know that. I don't need to tell you that, but we're constantly competing for attention. I put that in big, bold headline format because we are competing for attention before we even have the chance to be considered to be in competition for a sale, for a bid, for a proposal or a quote. So you need to get the attention long before any transactional conversations are occurring. All right. So believe it or not, customers out there have a very large appetite, voracious appetite for content that they can view, that they can take hold of, digest, munch on before they've even really started talking to a real sales person, whether it be somebody initially over the phone or whether it be somebody face to face. Gone are the days when you could just walk into a shop, even before COVID, and walk into a store, walk into an office and say, "Hi, I'd like to see so and so in charge of your decision making for all of your widgets and gadgets and other capital equipment." Those days are long fossilized, my friends. 80% of all consumer internet traffic is driven by video today. 80% of all consumer internet traffic. That includes browsing, reading, buying, chatting, and all of the other possible things that you could do on the internet that people will do as they start to evaluate and research and do all kinds of things to learn more in their decision making process. So they are truly hungry for the data. It may not appear as such. Think that they are really out there looking for it, but in this realm of video, oh boy, are they looking for it. So again, we're constantly competing for attention. And where is the attention being spent? On the internet. And video is something that represents about a third of all internet time being spent on behalf of users who are actually up there. So incredible. A third of the time. And that doesn't mean 9 to 5. It doesn't mean 8 to 4. It means all time on the internet. Obviously, your streaming services, the entertainment channels, Netflixes, and so forth, all of those account for part of this. So it isn't always a third of the time on business systems, industry content, but just all video content. So I do have to bracket it more accurately. However, look at this. Mobile video data rises 100% every year. That's just video consumption. All right. Video, people are looking at their phones. Here's one. They're looking at their phones and they're watching video, and more of that consumption occurs. It's mind-boggling how they get these numbers, but that's what YouTube is telling us. And they should know, because YouTube is a video content company. More video content uploaded in 30 days. In 1 month's time, there's more new content being uploaded in that time frame compared to what major television networks were doing. Your CBS's, ABC's, and NBC's were putting up on their channels over the course of 30 years. 1 month, 30 years, right? So you get the idea that I'm talking about video content being kind of the thing that people are using and watching. If you haven't already gotten that data, go back to this recording and watch those stats on the internet consumption again. And you want to check me out, double check, go ahead. You'll probably find that those numbers are relatively conservative when you really start drilling into it. All right, let's get into the reasons why video is so important to your relevancy to your customer base. Now, everybody should agree that the key to operating your business and the key to getting more sales and expanding your business is often related directly to how well the engagement experience was. We will do surveys after an installation. We will do customer feedback queries from time to time, and they'll say the service was great, the service was lousy, the staff was friendly, and all of those great attributes. But engagement starts long before the sales cycle has a chance to even begin. Now, you want that engagement to be as sticky as possible. And I mean sticky in a good way, where people kind of stick with you along that journey. So the best way to do that is to convey your message quickly, effectively, and most importantly, hold somebody's attention long enough so that they understand what it is you're talking about, why you are confident in your technology, and why they should be dealing with you as opposed to the guy up the road or the guy across town or the big box firm that appears to be everywhere. You want to be able to hold the viewer attention long enough to get that. And when they see fresh, helpful, informative content that aids in their educated decision process, they are constantly going to be reminded of your value, your brand, and they will remain loyal to that from the moment they've seen it all the way through until they have a chance to speak to you. And that's what marketing does in the first place. It gets people's attention, it gets people's minds to shift a little bit, and it gets people to be thinking of you when the time comes that they realize the need for your product or for your service. And they will be loyal to your brand. Do you want a deeper connection? Of course you do. Now, I've often talked to many small, regional, local type companies, and I'll ask them, what is it about your firm that's different than anybody else? And they will tell me, well, our salespeople, they love our salespeople. Our salespeople go out there, our service people go out there, and they know everybody at the customer first name basis. They know whose little league game, how many hits the kids got, who's up for, some dance recital or violin recital or choir thing. They often see each other at church. That sense of members of the same clan, members of the same community is very, very different than most bigger box kinds of companies. Well, that's great for when they are engaged with you face to face. But when you have the opportunity to take that emotional, warm and fuzzy and put it into a video series of content and series, I'll often say series because I don't mean one-shot deal. You can do things like interviews with your staff or welcome to the club, welcome to our firm, here's a tour of our company, all of these things. I'll get into that in a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself. But you can do interviews with the team. You can do customer testimonials or success stories. All of that and the repetition of that and the abundance of that draws people in and makes them feel like they are justified in their earlier stages of trust and connection, that emotional connection, because after all, people are human beings. And though they put up a fence and they put up this moat and this barrier between having a conversation and they're in the early stages of their journey, but when they're in that and they want that feeling of connection and human value, then the only way to do that is to take yourself, replicate yourself into a video, using video as the way to do that. So that goes well beyond any transactional interaction. And it happens way early in the lineup. Videos enable somebody to basically take any concept that you have that is important, that you really want people to understand, and break it down into a digestible, easily understood format. So when you take that video, those product demos, an announcement, and you put those things in a very straightforward way, the way you can communicate to somebody as if they were face to face, get over the idea that you're looking at a camera, not a human being with two pairs of eyes. Get over that, rehearse that enough, and you'll get to the point where you can talk to somebody as if they're right there, much the way I'm doing it right now. So Sure, a well-crafted explainer video, for instance, really gets a few key points in just a few minutes worth of time, and it really saves time for the prospects, for the customers, so that they can get informed. They don't have to do a data download. They don't have to get some 12-page user manual and or maybe find out that they downloaded the wrong one, or register first to get this gated material. They don't have to do any of that. They can just watch a video, understand, again, your value proposition, feel good with who you are, and begin to warm up to the idea that, okay, when the time comes, I will call on these people. Or what might happen even more often is they will watch a series of these videos. Maybe they'll be amused by something, the way you handle it, or maybe they'll be thoroughly convinced that when the rep does happen to call, they might say to you, I just saw your video on such and such, and that really resonated with me, because they saw it, they heard it, and they didn't have to take the time or overcome some desire or resistance to reading a long article or a brochure. So that's the first three. Let's come up with another two. Branding. Now, a lot of people don't understand what branding really means. That's a whole nother presentation, but in short, branding is who you are, what you represent, why should I deal with you? How it is established is in the colors and the logos and the typefaces and the fonts and all of the mechanical things that make a brand recognizable, so that when the symbols of your brand, like your logo, like your design formats, and like your other visuals that they see elsewhere, when they see that, those same feelings of confidence and expertise, and that's the recognizable brand moniker to such and such a company that I've been meaning to call or meaning to reach out to. So in short, that's what branding is. It's the product of that is what somebody understands you to be in terms of what they need and want. And if there's a connection there, they get it. If your branding is going to be inconsistent and it looks like something developed in the 1950s, then we should talk offline, because I can do a lot of work with you on that. But anyway, no plugging at this stage in the presentation. So you want to be a thought leader? You want to do something on your expertise? You want to do something educational? Yes, 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 and yes. You want to position yourself as a go-to resource for either information or a solution on a product or a problem with workflow, documentation, or managed services. I don't care what it is. Branding is very important, and you need to establish and maintain that authority. This will only reinforce the credibility that you have and need to have with anybody who you're expecting to do business with. All right. So I would think that'd be worth a few minutes of your time to review those elements of branding that might or might not be in place with your own situation. Let's talk about retention. I like this one. Now, there's a zillion different resources for information on reader retention and all of that. I boiled it down to this. When it comes to video, people who watch video will retain 95% of a message when it's in that video format, even if it's just 2 minutes. 2 minutes, 20 minutes, I don't care what the length is. But if it's in video and they hear it and they see it and there's some kinetics to it, meaning there's motion and some energy, they will retain 95% of that message, as opposed to being presented with the same data in a brochure or a sales sheet or some other written format. In that case, if they're reading it, they'll only get maybe 10% of the data that's there. That's a little hard for me to accept when I first saw it, because I was a writer and designer of this material, still am. But think about it. It's true. You will remember something you hear better than it will be if you were to just simply have read it. When you read something, you tend to misunderstood words. You might get distracted. You might have a hard time reading the type. Any and all of the above. It's a static form of communication that guarantees very little results unless you're presenting something from it. So think about that, 95% retention versus 10%. With those odds, I'm going to start looking at video. So that applies to anything, whether you're doing key product updates, technology updates, software updates, whatever the news might be that you find useful, services, value propositions, or even just a, hey, here's our quarterly, what's going on in town kind of a piece. So that's 2. We're down to the last 3 in our series of 8. When it comes to video, it used to be that, oh my gosh, the video files were so big, they were ungainly. You had to put them somewhere, store them somewhere, maybe walk around with a disk that you could put into a machine. Video compression today is so remarkable that you now have the ability to put these just about anywhere on any device through the communication lines that are available. You all know what YouTube is. We all know that we can do them on our websites, and we can do a whole series of channels, and we can do YouTube channels and social media and all of these wonderful things that everybody has been watching. Half of all video content today is on a mobile device, is viewed on a mobile device. So creating mobile-friendly videos really ensures that you are relevant, that you are not only relevant, but relevant to a younger audience, more accustomed to communicating on these little things than they were in the past. So whether they're on the go or they're looking at videos that they may not get the chance to see during the traditional workday because they're busy or they're on the road, these have an intrusiveness to them and a convenience to them that you need to leverage. That's the call for duty on mobile. The versatility and shareability is incredible. It can be shared, a video file can be shared across your website, social media, email type newsletters. You can embed a video directly into a newsletter now and increase the chances of organic reaches and clicks. You could put an audio visual or a video onto an email blast and have clicks beneath it, right? You've seen it. You see, if you're interested in this, registration link is in our bio. That's an Instagram thing, but you can have that in some of your major email platforms now. So it makes that whole experience very streamlined, very efficient, and it makes the communication just so much easier for people to see you, reach you, feel good, and be modernized enough so that you can take over that attention span that we're all fighting for. You can get a lot of very good intelligence when you do video. You can collect feedback in real time. You can see what the analytics look like. Who clicked on which video? Did they click on anything after that? What was the engagement like? Did they watch the video and then go to the brochure? Did they watch the video and go to this other demo? What did they do? What was their path? And now I have the ability to segment my marketing based on what activity got generated, which is kind of cool. And you can now automate some of that so that customized emails can be created with an even personalized approach. All of it automated. It's a little tricky to do at first, but once you get the hang of it, it can be done. And now you're really using the pipeline in a way that in some cases can even directly tie into your CRM. Again, I'm getting a little too far ahead of myself, but what we're trying to do here is take away handle that desire to view something without the burden of reading it, and which is a waste of time anyway, because you want that 95% retention rate, not the 10% retention rate. Let's talk a little bit about where and how to use your video content. Well, I've been kind of peppering this whole presentation with that already. The idea that you can use product demos, showcase the product, whether it's a tabletop thing or something that you need to walk around, I don't care, but it can be done. And these days, I don't need a whole full studio. All I need is good lighting and one of these to do what I need to do. And there's a lot of coaching that I can provide you with that. Testimonials and success stories are invaluable. Who did we do what for and what was the outcome as it's told through the eyes of your customer or the one who received the benefit and value. Holy cow, that is so relatable to anyone who might say to you, well, I see that you've done X, Y, and Z for A, B, and C, but what have you done for anybody like me? Now you can route them to a video testimonial success story that speaks directly to somebody in a parallel situation. Poof. And they can watch that even before that conversation has to take place. So what you're doing is you're practically priming somebody and profiling somebody before they've even had that reach to have a real conversation with you. So testimonials and success stories, enough said. Behind the scenes, yes, absolutely. If I say before that one of the things that makes you stand out is you're very good at being personable, personalized service. Your people know your customers by their first name. They know their situations. They know their kids' names, whose birthdays are when, and all of that. That's just hasn't gone away. That's that whole emotional connection thing. But now you can have people come in through the video channel and see who is behind the door. You can see how people present themselves. You can do a walkthrough. You can even handle the people who are a little bit shy about speaking and have them be a part of the B-roll and waving and smiling and all of those wonderful things that make for good impressions. You can also showcase elements of your company that maybe customers don't often get to see: the service area, the depot service area, the workbenches, the state-of-the-art this or that, the showroom, whatever it is that makes sense to you, the training rooms, whatever. All of those things are all good in offering somebody a chance to unbox you from the comfort of their own nest, going back to that little birdie in the nest. Education, we all like customers who make educated decisions, but we need to be the ones controlling their education. So you can provide insightful articles, practical advice types of tutorials. They can be quick little Q&As. You can tape, the top 3 questions most customers don't think with when they're looking for an XYZ. All of those can create very wonderful impressions and, again, fortify that branding that I was talking about before. As far as streaming goes, again, I'm not talking about doing everything live. For the most part, you can do it all recorded, because live can be a little scary thing. When that little light goes on, you go, all of a sudden, I'm live. What if I make a mistake? What if I fumble? If you record, obviously, editing can be done. Coughs happen. Fire engine sounds can happen. Any of those things out of your control, if you're not in a quiet studio setting, can happen. Even people can bust in on you while you're trying to do your recording. Happened to me a few times. So as streaming goes, you can engage with your audience live, but also in an on-demand fashion with, maybe they can submit questions after they've watched a particular piece. Again, every one of those is a touch point that contributes to credibility, that does that whole, resolves that attention gathering chore that we're all committed to. And let me sum it up, because we're just about at that half-hour mark. Years ago, when anybody would be approached with doing a video, much less putting a camera or doing a webinar, I had people who would say, oh, no, I can't do that. Or it's a nice thing to have. They would fluff it off. I have salespeople that can do all that. Fine, great. Maybe this video is not for you. But for you, those of you who are truly interested in that relevancy, in being credible, in reaching more people and having more reach coming in, video is vital. It is no longer a nice to have type novelty, but an absolute necessity for the expansion-minded business owner. All right. It's competitive out there, and attention is not going to be easy to get if you're not doing it. We want to strengthen those relationships. We want to enhance the engagement, encourage and push along the journey in the right direction, make the brand memorable, make it understandable, make it digestible, and it's going to require other ways of doing things. You leverage the power of the video content, you definitely are going to ensure that your business remains top of the mind, well positioned, and you'll continue to deliver value to your customer base even after you've got them as a customer and they need to go back to you for something else. Maybe it's time for an upgrade. Maybe it's time for an update or something else that you offer that they could benefit from. If they don't see the video of that and know that you do it, there's always a chance that a competition could come in and around the back door and you never know about it. So take these things to heart. We want to cut through the noise. We want to get to those connections, and we definitely want to help you anytime that you're ready to talk about this. It doesn't have to cost a lot. Not only is a video content easily digestible for a prospect or a viewer, from an expense point of view, it's easily digestible for the person writing your checks. We can do a lot without necessarily the recording studio, the whole backdrops. What you're looking at here is the setup I use. Nice HD camera on top of the monitor. The puppy stays at home, but a ring light will do it. Nice microphone. I actually use a Blue Yeti myself. I often use the little earphones depending upon where I'm at. As long as you have the ability to stand there and be confident and do what you do, we can map out just about anything, and it doesn't have to be on site. It can be done remotely very easily. If you're not convinced of that, go back a few years to when everybody was living on Zoom for anything with regard to business communication. All right. So it can be done remotely, very affordably, and we can make it go right for you. So that's it. I'll be doing more of these videos over time. I hope you enjoyed this one. Do not hesitate to reach out to me for any questions on this or any other aspect of your branding, because I'm here to help. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon.